Chapter 5 The Grey World. Sarah Grey approached the king and queen with a request that she be allowed to cross the barrier between worlds and seek out Princess Morin in the other world on her own. The request troubled both the king and the queen, for Sarah would lose all power of shape-shifting as long as she remained in the other world. And besides, ever since the two great wars of the other world, no one had dared to cross the barrier for fear of what they might find. The first thing I noticed, besides the lack of color, was the accompanying lack of sound. Not a single bird chirped in the trees. No animals scampered across the ground. The grass around me stirred with a faint breeze, but besides that, nothing moved. I scrambled to my feet, my head still spinning from the fall, my hands shaking with fear. I looked around to get my bearings, but there was nothing to fix on. All I saw were gray trees, gray grass, and gray sky. Claustrophobia rose up in my throat, threatening to choke the air right out of me. I closed my eyes and breathed in through my nose, then out through my mouth, willing myself to remain calm. It was a technique I'd learned from helping Juliana with her asthma. I always told her that panic just makes the breathing harder, and now I wished I could heed my own advice. The air felt cool and light around me, which helped. I kept my eyes closed and focused on breathing until my nerves had steadied themselves. Only then did I look around. What is this place? I took a tentative step, then another, approaching the nearest tree to take a look. It seemed like a dogwood tree, small and shapely, but drained of color like it came out of an old photograph. I reached out and touched it, and I don't really know how to describe how it felt except that it felt gray. Not lifeless, but more like it existed somewhere else, and I was feeling a sort of proxy tree in its place. That's the best way I can describe it. It felt like it was there, but not there, both at the same time. Funny, I thought to myself. Then realized I had spoken the word out loud. Hearing my own voice felt reassuring. I could speak, that was good. This tree is right about where the street sign had been. I glanced around the clearing in the forest and saw after some searching that the space was shaped like a cross or an X. I looked down at the ground, squinting to see in the dingy light, and it came to me that this wasn't exactly a clearing in a forest. It was an intersection of two roads that ran through a forest. How did I get here? And where is this place? I thought, still filled with fear but not paralyzed by it anymore. The more I studied the place, the more detail I saw and the more curious I became. Maybe I'm dreaming? I said to myself, again out loud. Why would you be dreaming when you're clearly awake? A voice answered me. I shouted in fright and looked around, but I could see nobody that might have spoken. Nobody had suddenly appeared, but the voice sounded as if it had come from right next to me. I kept looking around, but after failing to find the speaker, I spoke again. Who are you? There was a pause, after which the voice spoke again. It was a dry voice, but deep, neither male nor female, and I couldn't tell whether it sounded weary or just ancient. I might ask you the same thing, strange human. Does an intruder demand favors from the one he intrudes upon? Confused, I surveyed the area one more time for any sight of the speaker, but could see nothing. I didn't mean to intrude, I said by way of apology, and because I couldn't think of anything else to say. That may be true, the voice admitted, but you are still the stranger here, not I. I threw my hands up in despair. If it's not impolite to ask, are you invisible? There was another pause. Then came a dry chuckle, and for the first time the weariness in the voice abated. Not invisible, strange human. Merely short. Look down, near your feet. Cringing with uncertainty, I looked down and scanned the gray ground. At first I saw nothing but swaying grass blades that came up nearly to my knees. But then I caught a flicker of movement, a small, black, forked tongue shooting in and out of a mouth. I followed the mouth until it melded into a four-legged scaly body and ended in a spine-covered tail. The speaker was a lizard, like a Gila monster, but leaner, more dangerous looking. Its beady eyes focused intently on me, studying my face. A pang of fear stung me, but only for a moment. The creature didn't look poised to harm me, although if it had wanted to, I'm sure it could have. Sharp claws sprang from strong toes on each foot, and the spines on its tail looked lethal. Its face showed a shrewd kind of intelligence, however, which gave me the confidence to kneel in the grass so that we were nearly face to face. It looked at me, and I could have sworn it smiled. "Now you see me," it croaked in its raspy voice. "I do," I replied, grinning a little despite how strange this whole thing was. "Who are you?" "Strangers first," the lizard said in a wry tone. I swallowed uncertainly, although I could think of no reason why it shouldn't know my name. "I'm Germaine," I blurted out at last. "Germaine," the creature repeated, pondering. "Germaine. It's a good name. A strong name." I raised an eyebrow. "Is it? I've never liked it." The lizard cocked its head at me. "Why not? It is your name." I frowned. "Well, yeah. But not everybody likes their name, right?" The creature's mouth twitched, tongue flicking. It pawed the ground with an impatient front claw. "Why not? Your name is you. Your name is who you are, what you are. There is power in a name." I had no answer for that, so I switched tracks. "You never told me your name. You know mine, but I don't know yours." "I am Airy," the lizard rasped, pulling itself up with dignity. "Now we are even." "I'm glad to meet you," I said, feeling silly for trying to be polite to a lizard, but then kicking myself because he obviously deserved my respect. He was just as intelligent as I was, probably more so. "Now, if it isn't rude, can I ask what you are? And how do you speak my language?" The lizard thought about my questions for a moment. "As to how I know your language, I'm not sure that is the right question. I understand the speech of all intelligent things. As to what I am, are you sure you're ready to know?" I frowned again, confused. Why wouldn't I be ready? "Because you were the one who barged in and demanded the answers." The lizard sighed, a strange sound coming from a reptile. It sounded more like a hiss. "But I suppose you are a young human, and must be told everything. I am a keeper." My confusion deepened. "A keeper?" "Yes," the lizard replied. "You do not know what a keeper is?" It studied my face intently. "You have the mark of a keeper yourself. Surely you know what one is?" I shook my head. "No, I'm sorry." "Do you have other humans under your care that you must protect? Or perhaps other lower creatures than yourself?" I thought about that for a moment. It occurred to me that I did have humans under my care. Surely my siblings counted. And now there was Peter. "I suppose I am, if that's what a keeper is. What do you keep?" The lizard glanced around the clearing, raising one foot in a small but sweeping gesture. "I am a keeper of this place, one of many keepers like me." I looked around again, expecting to see something different than before, but still only finding myself surrounded by gray. I felt even more confused. "And what is this place? Why does it need keeping?" The lizard snapped its tongue at me. It was clear I was making him impatient again. "This is the web of worlds. It's the space between, the world that is not a world. We are standing at an intersection." My head spun with the information. Another world? A world that was not a world. I blinked to make sure I was not dreaming, slapped myself in the face. But still the grayness and the forest and the lizard persisted. The lizard viewed me with some amusement, and when I had convinced myself again that everything around me was real, he spoke. "You are slow to believe for a young human," he remarked. I've just never been to another world," I stammered. "Perhaps it's because you've never tried," the lizard suggested. "I don't know." The lizard hissed out a second sigh. "Well, there are only two possible reasons why you could be here. The first possibility is that you are supposed to be here, whether or not you know why." I blinked at him. "And the second possibility?" "The second is that you broke in," the creature hissed under its breath. I vigorously shook my head. "I didn't break in, I promise. I have no idea how I got here. I've never been here before in my life." "If that is all true, then you are supposed to be here." Airy curled up around the base of the dogwood tree, then poked a nose skyward. "I would think you have more right to be here than our other visitor. I am sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that he broke in. If you had come in with him, I would have killed you the moment you arrived." My blood ran cold. My helplessness suddenly felt overwhelming. I stood up and backed away. "Why would you kill me?" "I am not going to kill you," the lizard said dispassionately. "But you said you might have." "If you had come in with the demon, yes." "Why? And what demon?" Airy looked me in the eye. "Did you not see the demon? He was here until only a moment before you arrived." I looked around in sudden terror, afraid that some nightmarish beast lurked in the shadows of the forest. But again I saw nothing but the dark trunks of trees, the gray sky, and the dim grass. Or was that all that was there? A light had appeared in the sky, a glow that flickered behind the overcast clouds like a spitting flame behind a curtain. The color of the light didn't resemble a candle flame at all, though. It sputtered a frosty blue, like no fire I'd ever seen. I squinted hard, trying to make out its shape, when I heard an unearthly howl from overhead that made all the hair on my body prickle with fear. As the scream intensified, the light overhead grew in size and brightness until it looked like it was barreling straight for me. Ares snarled and whipped into the tall grass. "This demon is beyond my powers, human. Follow me. We must hide." With that, the lizard disappeared with remarkable speed into the forest. After only a moment's hesitation, I followed it. We both ran like the wind as the blue light descended from above and finally skirted over us at treetop level. I couldn't see the demon's entire form, but I caught glimpses of raging blue fire through the branches overhead. My heart pounded in my ears, my breath catching as I struggled to keep up with the lizard. Airy loped at breakneck pace, almost bending over double with each stride, his claws striking an occasional spark from stray rocks. As we ran, that awful feeling of something swept over me just as the sickly blue light washed over the woods around us. I glanced up in fear for one more look, and my foot snagged on a root. As I tripped and fell, the trees around me seemed to change. At one point they looked like gray buildings rising up around me. But right before I hit the ground, I thought I spotted another person walking nearby. A woman pushing a stroller. I struck the dirt hard, and all the breath in my body left me in one giant rush of air. Stars exploded in my eyes, and I thought I would pass out. But the feeling washed away after a moment, and I glanced up to see whether the demon still flew overhead. I saw only gray sky again, no blue fire. The screams from above had faded to a faraway howling. I pushed myself painfully to my feet, checking my limbs for any sign of damage. Besides 2 bruised knees and a scrape on my forehead, I had escaped unscathed. I looked around for the lizard. "Airy!" I whispered, peering into the darkness that shrouded the ground. "Airy! Where are you?" No answer came, and my heart sank. I only appreciated the value of his company now that he was gone. I had felt completely lost before, but now I was positively terrified. This entire world had no welcome for me, and I wanted out. I stumbled about looking for a landmark of some sort, but there wasn't even a visible sun in the sky to give me a compass heading. I picked a direction and began to run again. My eyes streamed with tears of frustration and fear as I begged to be let free from this colorless prison. As I ran, the shapes began to change around me from tall, stately trees to tomb-like mounds of gray earth covered with grass. Shades of human forms appeared, roaming in dim groups nearby, but never seeing me. I plunged onward, running toward another wide opening in the forest where there seemed to be more light. As I raced into the clearing, the grayness around me vibrated, tearing away with a violent spasm as bright sunlight swirled into the air. The world exploded in vibrant colors all around me. My whole being swelled with relief so powerful that I stumbled to my knees in a prayer of thanks. That was when I heard the blare of a horn and looked up just in time to be struck by a car.